Hello, you're welcome. You're welcome onto this channel, and it gives me great joy that you're viewing this video today. I'm Dr. Olayinka Akanle. I'm a sociologist. I'm a researcher. I'm a lecturer in the university. I'm a life coach. I'm a content creator. I'm a public speaker. On this channel, I do a number of things. I do all manners of stuff to add value to you, but all the stuffs I do, you can cluster them into 4: sociology, research, relationship, and migration. All of this I do as consistently as possible to add value to my subscribers. So if this is your first time of coming in contact with this channel or my video, kindly subscribe to this channel, comment, like, and share. And if you have subscribed to this channel previously, thank you very much for staying tuned. So today, I want to be addressing a very important subject in context of research. The title of the video, therefore, is What is Conceptual Framework and How to Develop an Excellent Conceptual Framework. Conceptual framework is a very important component of research. So whether you are undergraduate, whether you are postgraduate, whether you are a professional researcher, or you are even on your PhD or MPhil, it is very important that you know what conceptual framework is. And this is very important because even in some universities, it is a requirement that your thesis or your dissertation or your project must have conceptual framework. And if you are a professional researcher or you are a research firm, conceptual framework will definitely assist the quality of your report and your work. So what is conceptual framework? I simply define conceptual framework as diagrammatic or schematic representation of connections and interrelationships among variables. Diagrammatic, schematic representation of connections and interrelationships among your variables, the variables you are exploring in your research. How are they connected? What are their relationships? You need to show their connections and interconnections and interrelationships in your work. So this is very important. And in your research project, you must use this. And conceptual framework, people say maybe, well, it's not so important. Well, even though it may not be so compulsory in your own school or in your own project, but it assists your research. It guides your research in a logical way. It establishes the logical flow of your project, of your research, by showing the interconnections among your variables. So it gives logic to your work. Don't forget, research, it's about logic. It's about philosophy. What's the logic of it? That's why PhD is regarded as doctor of philosophy. That's the meaning of PhD, because you are philosophizing. And when you are philosophizing, it must be logical. So your research project must follow a logic, and conceptual framework will help you put logic into all of this to show the flow of the work and the research process. Don't forget, conceptual framework will also help you to achieve reliability and validity of your research. It will guide you to logical conclusions, and it explains the purpose, the objectives, and the research questions that you are very much interested in. It helps you because it will show you. I also strongly describe conceptual framework as a roadmap for your research process, as a roadmap to guide your research process. So it's a roadmap in a way, in the sense that it gives you, it's like a bearing that will guide you, because once you have a conceptual framework, you are able to clearly understand how your philosophies, your logics, and your research, how they will flow in coherent way. So conceptual framework can be regarded as a roadmap to guide your research process. Isn't that very interesting? It is very, very, very interesting. So now, how do you develop conceptual framework? How? Number one, you have to select a topic. You must have a topic, and your topic must be very researchable. Your topic must be smart. In terms of, your topic must be simple, must be measurable, must be achievable, must be researchable, and must be time bound. That is, you must be able to complete it within a time frame. In the sense that if you are going to write an undergraduate project, you shouldn't have a topic that will be comparable, that will be like a PhD topic. It's a thesis. You may have to do a thesis, a PhD for 3 or 4 years or 2 years, depending on the country. But your project as a undergraduate you may not have more than 3 months or 6 months. So your project must be well focused. So you must have a topic that is researchable, that is clear, very important. Then from this your topic, you form research questions or objectives. What are the questions that your research want to answer? What are the questions? And these questions must be logical, must be clear. This is very important. So you must have a research question, or you must have research questions that are smart, and also objectives that are smart. Then you must have reviewed extensive literature. You must have extensive review of literature. In fact, there's a video I drop on this channel. You may have to watch that also. About literature review, how to do literature review. So you must have reviewed literature extensively, systematically, chronologically, thematically. You must have reviewed it, because from this literature review, you will see the gaps in knowledge that you want to fill, and you will see variables that are in line with your topic and previous conceptual frameworks, and you can now begin to see the gaps in existing conceptual frameworks. So literature review, you must do literature review, then you must identify variables. By the time you have your topic, your research questions, your objective, and you do literature review, you'll be able to identify unique and important variables that you want to test. You must be able to isolate your variables from your objectives and your research question. Then once you now identify your variables, you must now begin to show the connections, interconnections, and interrelationships among all these variables in diagrammatic, in schematic ways, using arrows to show their connections. Then you can do this before you depart for data collection. That's pre-filled. And when you come back, you may have to change or revise, because your assumptions that will guide your conceptual framework before field work might have to change when you return from the field. That means the conceptual framework you took to the field may be different from the ones you are going to bring from the field. By the time you begin to, because you assumed interrelationship of your variables pre-field may change. The assumptions may not be valid by the time you come from the field. Your data may invalidate or falsify your conceptual framework. So you must be guided that your conceptual framework must be dynamic, generally speaking. So it's very important that you are able to understand that your conceptual framework must not be rigid, and your pre-field conceptual framework may have, most of the time, will have to change when you come back from field. So your post-field and even your final one, when you are concluding, may change. So you must now, you may not show relationships and through arrows. Meanwhile, the arrows you are using, you must be intentional and careful, because different arrows have different meanings. If you have thin arrow, it's showing some set of relationship. But when you have bold arrows, it shows strong relationship. And when you have disjointed arrows, they communicate different types of relationship. And the arrows must touch the boxes or the circles. So it's very important that you know all of this. So the arrows must touch the circle. I've seen the boxes, I've seen many conceptual framework very disjointed. And you must also know that a conceptual framework does not have to be excessively complicated. It's never complicated. We just want to see the relationships in schematic and diagrammatic way. It's not just I've seen conceptual framework very complex, very complicated. You are barely able to make any meaning out of them. So it's very important that our conceptual framework is clear. Conceptual framework must be clear, relatively complex though, because social relations, social networks that you want to show, actions and inactions and interrelationships you want to show through the conceptual framework are also not so simple. So your conceptual framework must not be too simple, at the same time must not be too complicated. So you have to show these relationships through arrows and boxes, and interrelationships must be able to clearly show. And more importantly, you must be able to interpret your conceptual framework. Your interpretations, your narrations, your explanations of the conceptual framework are the most important. It's not, you must be able to tell us the relationship and interrelationship, the boxes, the arrows, the nature of the arrows, like I've told you about bold arrows and thin arrows and disjointed arrows. You must be able to show us the relationship and how they are connected. So making meanings, interpreting and explaining this conceptual framework, these are the most important things. Interpretations, the meanings, the explanations are the most important. So it's not about just designing or developing your conceptual framework. You must be able to explain them and make meanings out of them. That's very important. And there are so many benefits of conceptual framework, so many benefits. They bring clarity to your work is clear. The whole thesis or your whole project or your whole report, if I carry a conceptual framework, I should be able to see what you're trying to say. Just one page or 2 pages of conceptual framework and analysis. Even before I read your interpretations or explanation, by the time I carry your conceptual framework, I should be able to see your thesis or your project or your dissertation or your research report in a glance. At a glance, it's very important. So it guides, conceptual framework bring clarity. Also, it guides your explanation and your analysis and definitions empirically. So we are able to see empirically as a result of data collection and strong analysis. We are able to see and your work empirically. Then it brings logical flow and explanation into your work. It shows mastery. If you have very excellent conceptual framework, it shows that you are a master in that area. You are a competent person. It's not easy to draw excellent conceptual framework, but if you are able to draw one, it shows that you have mastery, you have good grasp of the work, and you are a very competent person. Then it saves time. By the time you are able to come up with your conceptual framework, your work is half done. So it saves your time because you are clear. So it saves time. Then it's fantastic aesthetics. When you see beautiful, excellent conceptual frameworks, it makes your work very good. It's not just textual. It's not basic. It's not textual. So it's aesthetically very interesting. It's very interesting. It brings quality, finesse, excellence into the work, rather than just going textual analysis, tables, and text, depending whether you do quantitative or quantitative study or you use mixed method. Meanwhile, there's another video I did on this channel on research methods where I was talking about qualitative and quantitative researches and the differences and similarities. So even if you do mixed method, it shows that you have good grasp, you are a good researcher, and it brings good structure and organization into your work. Your work becomes very structured, very organized, very fine, very excellent, very clear, and very logical. So it's very important. So the conceptual framework is very good. I do sincerely, I'm sure you are enjoying this video and you understand what I'm saying in this. So another very important thing, extra I want to bring to this video is, I've done a video on theoretical framework. Then, but I see people usually confuse, have problems distinguishing theoretical framework and conceptual framework. So I want to add that one to it. So watch the video on theoretical framework also. So theoretical framework and conceptual frameworks are not essentially the same, though they may have a relationship in the sense that they are bringing structure, logic, explanations, and interpretations and meanings to the work. So both of them bring meanings, interpretations, explanations, and explanations and logic and structure and flow into the work. That's the similarity. They are both to assist you in bringing structure and logic and explanation and interpretations and meanings into your work, but they are not essentially the same. Theoretical framework simply shows the relationship among the theories you are deploying. In that video on theoretical framework, I did mention that if you are using only one theory, you may not need theoretical framework. But when you are triangulating theories, using more than one theories, 1, 2, or 3 of theories, you may need to bring them together in coherent ways. You're using the theories to explain your variables, and using the theories to guide your work, showing the relationships among your theories and your variables, and now they can guide your field work, and now they can assist your conclusion and interpretation. So you can now falsify or strengthen the theory. So this theoretical framework brings your theories, your theoretical propositions together and align those theoretical propositions with your research objectives and your research, and help you to explain your findings and interpretation. Conceptual framework also does something like that, but not entirely. So conceptual framework is more specific to the relationship among your variables. The theoretical framework can help you explain your variables, but the relationship schematically, comes from, or the relationships come from, schematically from conceptual framework. Conceptual framework will help you to show the relationship among all of this in a way that you are able, they bring clear relationship into the outlines of relationships. They bring clarity into the relationship among your key issues. So you bring your key issues into focus through your conceptual framework. So what are the key issues, key variables that you want to measure? and how do they relate? And this is what you want to show through your conceptual framework, that these are my variables, this is my independent variable, and these are my dependent variables, and the relationship between my independent variable and my dependent variables, this is how they are connected, this is how they interrelate, this is how I want to explain them based on my hypothesis, research question and objectives. I'm hypothesizing that the relationship is inverse, is direct, is complicated, is complex. This is what will lead to this, and you are showing this by arrow. It shows key issues and key outlines of the variables, the relationships among them, clearly shown specifically through the arrows. But theoretical frameworks essentially talks about the theories, relationship among the theories, how it's going to guide your research process, and how is your research explainable in context of these theories, and how are these theories going to assist you to explain your theories and even your objectives, and how can you use your findings to falsify or invalidate these theories, and how can these theories be used to explain your work, or how can your findings strengthen this theory? The theoretical propositions and assumptions are being used to guide the work in general. But in conceptual framework, it's more direct, it's more specific to the relationships among the theories. Those you discovered, identified pre-field, and those you are bringing back from the fields, and how they relate. These are just the major difference. They are related, but they are not entirely the same. Should you need more information on this, you can drop your comment, and you can reach out to me. I will explain it. So I do sincerely hope you've enjoyed this video. Kindly subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. Until I see you in the next video, be your best.